Anything that's forbidden is attractive. That's why I play those parts.
There's all this stuff about the truth. Truth? Why, when everywhere you go, people tell lies. In pubs, to each other, to their husbands, to their wives, to the children, to the dying. And thank God they do. No one tells the truth. Why single out newspapers? Why are there, a special standard?
If you are to remain in command of the Reich, then you must go to Berchtesgaden as soon as possible.
I will not go to Berchtesgaden! I will not go to Berchtesgaden! You and all of your incompetence can go to hell!
I'm able to play monsters well, like Lambert LaRue in David Hare, Howard Brenton's play Pravda. I played Hitler in The Bunker. I'm able to gather something. I understand monsters. I understand tyrants. I understand madmen. I don't know what it is. I have a sympathy with them in a strange way. I can understand what makes people tick in these darker levels.
How did you handle it once you were doing it?
I get the image and I imitate the image and I externalize it. When I was playing Lambert, what is his name, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, when I read the part, I thought, that's him. Again, it was the sleek back hair. That's a theme, the sleek back hair, the lizard, the reptile, unblinking. And I think these men, these monsters, they have the capacity to stare death and the devil in the face unblinkingly. And that's what makes them great, in a way. Great and monstrous. They stare into the eye of the basilisk and, you know, they look into the eyes of the devil and they are unflinching. And I think that's what gives them their power. And so I get that image and I can imitate it.
You had, in Port Talbot terms, a successful father. The man would run a pub, would run a bakery, a very successful grandfather. So where exactly is that coming from? Do you think that's inside the family? Do you think that's inside you? Do you think that's all the loneliness of your childhood?
I don't know where it comes from, really. I wish I could express more the compassion that I do sense in myself. I can't really describe it. I can understand loneliness. I mean, okay, well, take a part that was rather a successful part, was Lambert LaRue in Pravda. What I could understand about somebody like that was his sheer isolation and his loneliness. I felt all my life, until fairly recently, that I was on an offshore island with a pair of high-powered binoculars looking at life going by. That's how I'd always felt in my relationship with the world.
Rye and water.
I wanted to become very well known. I saw a very sentimental old film with Charlie Chaplin, and I fell in love with Claire Bloom. I thought I wanted to become famous in order to meet Claire Bloom.
The bar's good enough for me. The bar's good enough for me.
Everybody goes to the cinema and everybody comes out thinking they can do that and they're a star. There will be a star. One way in which you took it a stage further was to be very good at imitating these people. Did this mimicry was it something you could do, found you could do? Well, obviously it was. And
yeah, I used to go into the movie theatre and I come out looking like them, you know, and being like them, walking like Bogart, talking like Rod Steiger, and it was Fantasyland, as it was for many kids.
How did you develop it?
You played it for her, you can play it for me. If she can stand it, I can play it. Those are the Bogart, and of course Burton was from my hometown, so I used to go and see The Robe, and you know, I could imitate Richard very well, and I didn't know Richard at all, but I met him in New York and in Equus, and he said, "Good Lord, where did you come from?" I said, "Thai Bach." Yes, I used to work in the co-op over there, and just opposite your father's shop. Why haven't we ever worked together? We must do that sometime. Do you know my wife, Elizabeth? And I got to know Rod Steiger. He came to see Silence of the Lambs. He said, "I tell you something, my friend. I taught you everything. You've got that performance from me." I said, "No, I got it from Brando." "Hey, there is a man I do not want to change places with ever. That's my Steiger. You are nothing, my friend." Look.
Did Burton matter to you at all? I mean, the geographical and social and the national connections are very strong.
I did ask him for his autograph when I was a kid in Taibach. He did fascinate me because he had all the demons that I had, and when I read your biography of him and various biographies, it's in, I can see the parallels, and I know his guilt and his darknesses and his fights and his conflicts inside himself. And this peculiar thing about the Welsh boy making good and becoming this multimillionaire and living, marrying the most beautiful film star in the world and all that, and all the jewelry. I can understand all that, for some reason, and the peculiar insecurity of it all. You know, he piled in the booze and all that because he couldn't cope, he couldn't live with these conflicts.
Richard Burton grew up in the village of Pontry Diverne, only a few miles from Taibach in Port Talbot, where Hopkins' father had his bakery. We took him back to the site of the bakery, which is now being converted into flats.
Good God. Believe it or not, I lived in here. It's just like my dreams. Ruins. Maybe it's a symbol of my own ruined life, I don't know. This was the bakery area, the bakehouse. Same tiles. And this is how I've always imagined it, in ruins for some reason. And it is. There's a moulding machine there. My father used to lug these big bags of flour, and even if he had flu or colds, he'd pull these, and I used to watch him, and he'd lean against the table, going white, actually, and the sweat running down his face sometimes when he wasn't too well. I think that's what strained his heart over the years. And I remember that sometimes, the yellow look in his face around the gills, and the sweat. And he'd say, oh, God. And he'd do that, and I remember that, God, he's worked hard. Yeah. I think that's why I get angry sometimes. He was a pretty ferocious character. I don't mean in a negative sense. I mean, he just had ferocious energy. So that's how I played David. David ap Llywelyn was an exaggeration, in fact, of my father, but that's what I based him on.
What's happening to us, Guy? What's happening to us, bird?
Sorry, I get a bit over-enthusiastic occasionally.
And I went to the wardrobe, and they put a short kind of military coat on me, which was far too short and far too small. And I put it on, and I thought, that's it. I looked in the mirror, I thought, there's my father. And as I walked down the street towards the location where the filming, I started to limp slightly. My father had an arthritic knee. I thought, it's my father. Dick Hopkins has come home to rest. Come home to roost, rather. And that's how I played him, a man of ferocious energy, irrational energy.
Take it away, Mr. A.
Oh, from Rantyre say the wedding are he the nose.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. George.
I'm sorry. I sincerely beg your pardon, Mr. George. I say, every time I hear that... It's all yours! Take it away, boy.
My father said all bakers were mad because you could never guarantee a result of anything. And one baker here committed suicide. As I remember the anger, my father's anger with his own father, all very Russian, all very Dostoevsky or Turgenev, as it was, fathers and sons. My father and my grandfather, they always led with the chest when they walked. And they had rather heavy skulls. When I was working in Lear and Anthony, I felt these terrible sort of rages against other actors, against people on stage, against the audience. I've always felt the audience, I want to hit them. Sometimes that's useful when you're playing some, like, you know, very ferocious part like Lear. I wanted to hit them like they were the challenge, like I was in a bull ring.
But goes thy heart with this?
Aye, my good lord.
So young and so untender?
So young, my lord, and true.
Let it be so! Thy truth, then, be thy dower.
I suppose when I play these monsters, like Lambert Leroux or Hitler or Lear, or a more refined version in Hannibal Lecter. But in playing this part, Wilcox, in Howard's End, I felt it was kind of rather Edwardian tunnel vision.
and I felt his drive.
On a little higher on the hand, please. Thank you. And half of it.
Tony's forte that he has refined
Here we go.
is playing people who are bursting with emotion, but unable to communicate it. Now, I feel that must come from his grandfather, because he felt from his grandfather, both of them actually, great love. And yet they appear to have been two monolithic men, quite unable to express their feelings.
Could you tell us what you think you've drawn on from your father, and particularly your grandfather? And why are they so fertile to you still?
Well, I think I can play... I've gathered from them both anger, tremendous anger, depths of rage, somewhere, which I've managed now to free myself from. You know, it doesn't govern me anymore.
Did it used to?
Yes. Yes, it made me many enemies, and I've had some ups and downs in my theatrical career.
What? You're still there, are you? I've forgotten you. Well, what's eating you? You pay to see blood, and blood you want to see, is that it? Well, blood you shall have.
Othello, dear my lord, Othello!
Calls me Othello, who believes I'm playing Othello. Othello was a murderer. I am a stutterer. Oh, God. Give me Othello, give me the pulse, give me the rage. 1 minute, 1 single minute, please. I've played him so often it should be possible.
You played a massive part, Sartre's play on Kean. It's full of real, serious, sort of non-acting anger, isn't it?
Yes. This is the Othello section.
Yeah.
Yes, I was very angry that day when I did it, and it was all improvised. I was very angry at people around. They hadn't done any harm. It's my own anger with myself and frustration. The frustration with being an actor in a way, and tearing the makeup off. All that was improvised, and the spitting, the violence, that was all me. And I felt like that when I was a child, when I used to run out of my own, when I couldn't cope with people, and I used to try and tear my hair out and all those sort of things, and that was part of it, you know.
But tell me, who were you applauding just now? Othello? Impossible. Othello is a blood-thirsty lunatic. Then it must be Kean. It must be Kean, our great Kean, our dear Kean, our national Kean. Well, here he is, your Kean. Here he is. Yes, here he is.
It was a childish tantrum, a childlike tantrum, and that's what that was. It's the attitude, screw you attitude, that's what it was.
Was the rage fear as to whether or not you could do this thing?
I suppose so. No, I think that comes back rage at academia. I mean, at my lack of ability at school. And the theatre's always frightened me. When I ever go into the theatre, I'm going back into school. Whenever I meet directors, it's back at school. When they say, right, come on, let's talk about the verse. Now, that's not their fault. That's my problem, you know.
Ah, yes. Well, nothing has changed here much. We used to have the boards of honor, or roll call of honor, merit, university, Jesus College, all very depressing for me because I was so non-academic. It's the loneliest place I've ever been, I think. There was a piano here, and I used to play on Saturday afternoons. I used to improvise and make up music. But it was, I was always in a very minor key. And it was my way of, it was my armor, I suppose. So I was very isolated. And I'm very thankful for that peculiar isolation because it fed me enough grit and drive to prove myself, to myself, and to get back at them, whoever they were. Of course, they're all fictions. They were all out of my own mind, really. I hated the loneliness of it. I hated the snobbishness of it. The sheer snobbery of the British boarding school system. And I think that's part of why I feel today
not ever a part of anything in the acting profession. I don't feel actually part of a group at all. I feel very uncomfortable in groups. We had a boy here, he was a head prefect. His name was Griffiths, and he was a very good actor. Everyone thought he was going to be a big actor. Never heard of him again. I longed that I might become a pianist, but you know, I didn't have the staying power for that. I had no future at all. I suppose I was just slow, dim, thick. I was called a duffer, and I suppose that's what I was. But in those days, it was important to be something. You know, you had to be #1. So I suppose over the years I've overcompensated. And seeing all this now leaves me completely empty. I'm free of it, and it's been quite a catharsis. My father was dying to get me out of the house because I used to play the piano all the time. He was worried about me because I was introverted and had no friends at all. So he said to a neighbor, he said, take him to the YMCA to show me how to play snooker or something, or introduce me to table tennis or some young kids, you know. I wasn't interested in it, but I went with him. And there was a rehearsal room at the end of the corridor. And I went in and they were doing a play. Well, it hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed at all, really. I came here Easter 1955. My cousin Bob introduced me to this place. I was a bit of a loner, a drifter, had no future. And I came in here one night into this hall, and they were rehearsing Cyril Jenkins and the YMCA players, and they were doing an Easter play. And Bob said, would you like a new recruit? And Cyril said, yes, can you act? I said, I'm not sure. And I played a priest, a saint in this Easter pageant. And my first line was, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And I remember standing up on this stage. I don't know if I can get up there. This doesn't collapse, I hope. And I remember standing here. It was the first time I felt a sense of confidence in myself, a sense of a belonging. I thought at last I found something I may be able to do with my life. I thought, this is it. This is the way I'll go, I suppose. I'm always coming back. I'm always dreaming of being back in this building, being back in Taibach, being in the library, looking for books that have answers and knowledge. And this place in my dreams is always in ruins, always rain pouring through. And in the shop where I was brought up, that's always in ruins in my dreams, looking at books, looking for wisdom, looking for the answer. And that has been the recurring pattern in my inner life, I suppose.
The next 10 years were to take Anthony Hopkins away from his hometown forever. A scholarship to Cardiff Drama College was followed by national service, then a string of small parts with touring companies and in provincial rep. Finally, a director suggested he audition for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. At RADA, he was the star student of his generation, and at last it seemed that real opportunities were opening up to him.
One of the things about his massive giftedness was that I felt at the time that he was worrying too much about things. I mean, he did actually get to a stage at the end of, really, I suppose, about our first year, when he worried himself to death so much about the technique of how to do things, that he was a man who could do everything off the top of his head, who actually couldn't come onto a stage and turn on a light switch without having a coronary with worry and fret about it.
After RADA, he was able to play larger parts, mainly in Leicester, Liverpool, and at the Royal Court in London. In 1965, he was auditioned by Laurence Olivier for the National Theatre Company.
Despite the fact that you went to RADA, you've said several times that you find yourself very uncomfortable in the English London theatre.
And when the director said, "Trust me," no. If anyone said, you know, this at the beginning of a rehearsal, they give you the usual pep talk, you know, this is going to be a journey of discovery, I always want to pack my bags and go. Or when they say, you know, Hamlet is this, you know, they sometimes categorically say this is what the production is going to be like. And so I've never felt comfortable there.
He had very clear opinions, usually well-founded and quite often different from theirs. But they would deal with him by patronizing him as a sort of talented hunk, you know, sort of you go over there and play with your dolls, you know, well, we sort out the play. And, of course, that drove him absolutely mad. It was one of the reasons he went to America.
I had endless fights with the directors. I mean, I'm pretty violent fights with the directors. I'd get up and walk out of rehearsals, and I couldn't bear anyone to be, you know, putting me down. And there were one or two of those around, and I couldn't stand them. I used to approach physical violence with them. I mean, I was very feisty. And, but they seemed to forgive me and get me back and do some more work. And I had a long, arduous struggle with that fighting and rebellion.
Was it very daunting to go and audition for Olivier?
I walked in and I thought it was Harry Worth, you know, this man, three-piece suits, slightly thinning hair, glasses. He looked like the bank manager. I didn't know who he was, you know, and because I'd never been an avid theatre goer myself, and I'd seen Othello that night, the night before. I couldn't believe this was the same man who was giving this astounding sort of Edmund Kean performance the night before. And he shook hands. He said, "What is your name?" I said, "Anthony Hopkins." "Yes. What are you going to do for us?" And he had his notepad, and I said, "Well, I'm three sisters. Three sisters. What you?" I said, "Andre, or Tusenbach." Tusenbach. What else? I said, "Undershaft, Major Barbara." Undershaft. What else? What's your Shakespeare? I said, "Othello." "You've got a bloody nerve, haven't you?" So at the end of the audition, he said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to lose any sleep tonight." He said, "You're awfully good, baby. Would you like to join the company?" So I joined the company.
Larry said to me, this boy came to give an audition, and he did Othello and Richard III, and he did complete imitations of me. So what else could I do but employ him?
Libby used to catch me out imitating him. "I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smoked him thus." He said, "That's not like me at all, is it, dear heart?" He said, "I don't think it's a very good impersonation." I said, "Well, it's everyone else says it is. You're so cheeky." "Can you do Johnny?" I said, "Oh, God, so boring. Such a vulgar actor, you know."
He was rather worried that, as I understand it, there was a time when he saw you as he had seen Richard Burton, and he was worried that you were going to drift off into movies and booze, really, instead of staying and getting the grounding in the theatre. That's what that was behind it, wasn't it?
Yes.
He was, and
that's just what I did.
And so we moved to the next chapter.
Yeah, and booze. Yes, I did all that. I didn't care.
It's good enough, thanks. Ryan water.
When I first came to California, out here, Santa Monica, it was like being on another planet. I thought there were a different race of people. Everyone in those days looked very glamorous, and I thought they were all tall blonde girls and good-looking guys. I like the shallowness of it all in a way. Jonathan Miller said to me when he came out here, he said, "How can you live here? It's like living on the moon." I said, "Well, it's all right. I like it here." There's a lovely time in the evening, like now, and it feels very, very peaceful, and it just feels right. And I carry that feeling around with me most of my time now. That thing just feels right inside, you know. No contention, no argument, no fighting, no belligerence.
Despite his problems at the National Theatre, by 1973, Hopkins was combining major roles there with an increasing amount of film and television work. He took a film role in A Doll's House, alongside his childhood heartthrob, Claire Bloom. At the same time, he was playing the lead role in the Scottish play Macbeth, and he was rehearsing for the Misanthrope, both at the National Theatre. He was under pressure and drinking heavily. Even so, many felt that he was set to take on the mantle of his mentor, Laurence Olivier. Hopkins had other ideas.
I think he always wanted to go to Hollywood. And I think when he got this small part, which it was only the very beginning of Misanthrope and the end, I think he suddenly cracked and said, this is the time I must leave. I really must go now. That's what I sensed in him. And I was actually there the day he, because I was doing Misanthrope, and I was actually there the day he just suddenly walked out. And we all sort of looked round and he'd gone.
I was trouble, you know. I was just a bore, really. And I couldn't fit in. I just didn't feel at home, and that was my problem. I was bad-tempered, drank too much and all that. And it all came to a bit of a crisis, and I walked out. I left in the middle of a production, which was a very drastic thing to do. I hurt a few people. But it's the only way I knew how to survive whatever I was going through, and so I got out, and I was in work. I started work fairly soon after that. I suppose I went through a sort of, not a breakdown, but I just felt very unhappy and unsettled, and I had no sense of self-confidence at all.
You have to have a very strong sense of self and a very strong sense of destiny before, as a young actor, you walk out of the starring role in the Scottish play at the National. Far from it being a sign of the fact that he was in complete turmoil, it is also an absolute sign that he knew that the yellow brick road was right in front of him.
Well, I found tequila when I came here, and I drank enough of that to unzip my brain and drive me crazy. And then I woke up and came to my senses. I thought, well, I'm going to blow it all if I don't stop doing this nonsense. I used to come down to a bar here. It's gone now. Just around here. One bright morning, I came out of somewhere along here. I thought it was over. I better stop doing this kind of nonsense because I'm not in very good shape. And the moment I decided to stop, most extraordinary relief came. I thought, that's it. It's over. I've burned out. I've finished with this way of life. It was just along here somewhere. Bright Monday morning, 1975. And it's a strange place, actually, to meet a crossroads in your life, because it's a pretty drab-looking place, in fact. But that's the way it was for me, you know. It wasn't some glamorous upmarket place. It was rather down at heel, dump, really. So it was the oddest place to meet a crossroads.
There's a point with heavy drinking which merges into alcoholism where it does become a complicated game that some people play with themselves. It's how far can I go before I destroy myself? Did you find all that as you got involved in drink?
The problem is with that, it's very seductive. It is an illusion if you are like me, you know, because I'm allergic to the stuff, I suppose. Is that you think it's going to, more will do more. More will produce more of this effect. The problem is then giving it up. When you give it up, if you go cold turkey, as they say in America, without any kind of help or support system, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous or therapy or whatever your bag is, it's a nightmare. You go slowly mad because you're not getting your medicine. And I did it for 6 to 8 weeks on my own sometimes. And at the end, I thought, I'm going to go nuts. I've got to have that drink. And you take the first one, and it's like a nightmare unraveling because it gets worse. And that's what it does. If one is chemically constructed, as I guess I am, I don't understand the nature of this peculiar condition, except I used to be worried that if I stopped, I would lose my edge, as they say. Now I don't give a damn if I've lost my edge or not, because I'm alive, and I've joined the human race again, and all my problems seem to have sort of evaporated anyway. And
so this was 1975 when you managed to give up?
Yeah.
And since then, not a drop?
Not a drop, no.
After 1975, despite living in Hollywood, Hopkins was still getting his big film roles from British directors. He made A Bridge Too Far with Richard Attenborough and worked with him again on Magic. He also made International Velvet with Brian Forbes. But he was not yet a major star in America, and most of his work came from TV movies such as Victory at Entebbe and The Bunker.
Can you just talk specifically about playing Hitler? How did you prepare for that role?
I got John Toland's book, and I read on The Life of Hitler, which I think then was, back in 1980, was a new publication. a new book on Hitler, and I also read Albert Speer's book, Inside the Third Reich. And I watched one or two documentary films. I watched a film called A Courier about Hitler, which is a lot of coloured film, Technicolor film, about his rise from when he was Reichschancellor. And I tried to get through Mein Kampf, which was almost unreadable. I mean, it was so turgid. And what I knew was I read the script, which was quite a good script. And I read a book called The Bunker, and Hugh Trevor Roper's book, The Last 10 Days of Hitler. So I was only dealing with the aging Hitler, the last 4 weeks of his life. A man who was palsied, shaking, he was suffering from Parkinson's disease, he was on all kinds of drugs. He's a wrecked man. The last shots in Berlin, when those little boys in the garden, the Chancellery Garden, he's going to them, touching their ears. And I saw something really tragic in that. I saw an old man. It's very odd. I don't know why that affected me. I remember that affecting me. I thought, well, horrifying monster that he was. There, in that moment, is the tragedy of ego. The man was human. That's what makes him frightening.
What's your name?
Kruger.
Yeah? Kruger?
Willy Krug, my Führer.
Kruger?
Yes?
I wish my generals had your courage.
Thank you, my Führer.
Goodbye, yeah.
I find that acting has been tremendously therapeutic for me. Because I think if I hadn't been an actor, I probably would have been, I don't know if I would have been slightly criminal, but I don't think I would have been a very nice human being. I think I would have eaten myself alive. And acting has saved me from that in a way. It's helped me to touch parts of my own personality, I suppose, of my own inner darkness.
In '76, and I'd gone through my personal crisis with the old booze or magic medicine or whatever I was doing in those days. And in that first year, it was a very exciting time because I was on a roller coaster of such emotional highs and lows and all that. And I used to come up here and other mountains up towards Bakersfield, and I used to climb up there to those hills. I used to climb up the top, looking for what, I don't know. I used to think, if I get to that point there, for example, if I get to the top of that, I'll find it. And I didn't know what it was, but I was hoping I would find something up there. And there was nothing up there, but it was breathtaking. I felt free again, and I just thought, God, this is fantastic. And I thought, this is it. I don't really care whether I work or not again. And that attitude has stayed with me, you know. I found what I'd been looking for, really, and that was just to get on with my life, live my life, and fill in between work, you know. Yes, well, it was outside the territory. I had to take on some, yes, that's right, and had to take on some rather rotten policy, but lately it came in and saved his houses now. What's wrong with tomorrow? I don't understand what acting is. I don't know what my function is as an actor.
Salary.
My dear Helen, I'm very grieved for your friend. I really am. He was a clerk, wasn't he? It's all part of the battle of life.
Battle of life?
Yes. I find it a very simple process now. I don't complicate it by trying to examine it. Come here, not to blame. No one is to blame.
No one? Okay. Hang on, sorry. Can we just finish this rehearsal?
Yeah, we'd better do a few more like that, don't we? Oh, come, you're not to blame.
No one? There's no one to blame for anything?
I didn't say that. You're taking it far too seriously. This Mrs. Munt. Word of advice.
I require no more.
Don't take a sentimental attitude from the outset. Poor. See that she doesn't, Margaret. The poor are poor. I'm sorry for them, but there it is. I'll talk to your aunt. Don't worry. I have a few rehearsals and some of the lines may go. But then, you know, you do it and you do it, and then you get used to it and you do a couple of takes, do the scene a couple of times, and you can do whatever you want with the scene, really.
Umbrella, quick, umbrella, everybody. 3. Action!
Margaret, that's nice to Miss Fast.
That's what I like about working in film. You just go along with it. It's the more relaxed you are, I think the easier it is.
Ah, yes, the poor period.
But I like it this way because it's
It's effortless.
I want to go down to Howard's End tomorrow, and I'd like you to come with me.
Mr. Bassney never have left and taken another post at a greatly reduced salary.
My dear Helen, I grieve for your clerk, I really do, but it's all part of the battle of life.
The battle of life?
Yes.
A man who has little money now has less.
Come, you're not to blame. No one is to blame.
Oh, no one. There's no one to blame for anything.
I didn't say that. You take things far too seriously. There's your aunt. I can talk to her. Word of advice, Helen.
I require no more advice.
Don't take up a sentimental attitude for the poor. See that she doesn't, Margaret. The poor are poor. One feels sorry for them, but there it is. I'll talk to your aunt. Don't you bother. I learned the lines very, very well and, you know, very methodically, so that I can improvise, make them sound real on each take.
Scene 59F, take 1.
So I don't have that sweat or that tension about not knowing the lines. Come, come. My dear Helen, I grieve for your clerk, I really do. But it is all part of the battle of life. My dear Helen, I grieve for your clerk, I really do. It's all part of the battle of life. My dear Helen, I grieve for your clerk, I really do. But it's all part of the battle of life.
The battle of life?
Yes.
A man who had little money has less, owing to us.
Oh, come, come. Anyway, you're not to blame. No one is to blame.
No one? Oh, is no one to blame for anything?
I didn't say that. You take things far too seriously. Oh, come, come. You're not to blame. No one is to blame.
No one? No one to blame for anything?
I didn't say that. You take things far too seriously. I never said that. You take things far too seriously. There's your aunt. I can have a word with her. My relationship to directors has changed. I used to fight them. Now I don't. Could I try? You're right. I got in the habit of my eyes. Let me just do one more. I think that they do the best they can, and I do the best I can. I was good. We seem to get on fine now, which is a great new change for me.
You completely natural when the camera's filming you.
Sorry?
Do you find yourself being completely natural
Yes.
when the camera's
I
filming
don't. What camera?
you? Yeah, I know. It's funny that. It's just,
Not even aware of the camera. I just. I'm a happening. I don't act.
It's like,
say
yeah.
clever when I go.
You told us the Porphyrion was smashed before Christmas.
Did I? Yes. Well, it was outside the tariff ring at the time. Took some rather bad policies. But lately it came in. Safe as houses now. From tomorrow.
Well, Aunt Julie would be so disappointed if I left
Did
now.
Mr. Wilcox clearly tell us that the Porphyrion
Yes,
was...
let's talk about it later, shall we? Henry, Aunt Julie regards this visit
And now it turns out that it's safe as houses, and Mr. Bassney never have left and taken another post at a greatly reduced salary.
My dear Helen, I grieve for your clerk. I really do. But it is all part of the battle of life.
Battle of life?
Yes.
A man who had little money has less, owing to us.
Oh, come, come. You're not to blame. No one is to blame.
No one? Is no one to blame for anything?
I didn't say that. You take things far too seriously. There's your aunt. I'm going to have a word with her.
Helen.
Helen, word of advice.
I require no more advice.
Don't take up a sentimental attitude over the poor. See that she doesn't, Margaret. The poor are poor. One is sorry for them, but there it is. I'll talk to Aunt Julie by tomorrow. Don't you bother.
When you came back to England in the mid-80s to work at the National, and after Pravda you began to tackle the big Shakespearean roles again, what matters to you about being on the National Theatre stage and holding a part for 3 hours?
Well, it doesn't anymore, but what mattered to me then was to get it right and to be seen, I suppose, to prove that I hadn't sold out. And of course it was really an exercise in futility, because I'd played Pravda and I'd done a few other things which were quite good. And I thought, well, looking back, I think, what was the big struggle? What was I trying to prove? Nothing, really. And I have no desire to prove them from now on, to prove myself in that way anymore.
Your successful career in Hollywood, you want to be a film actor, that's your dream, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But getting towards that, you did some TV work here. And what about across the lake? I was interested in that because I've done some work myself on Campbell, and he is a fascinating man.
Yes. I watched your film, in fact, the interviews with Campbell.
Well, they're all jolly good, willing helpers, and it's the good old Battle of Britain, Dunkirk spirit. There's a job to be done. It's a man-sized job, and everybody up here with their heartbeat in the right place is all, you know, right behind it.
His face was so vulnerable. He was so arrogant, and he was so hurt as well. He was hurt by the press. He was hurt by the newspapers because they thought he was out of his time, that he was a lost cause. And I thought, God, I understand that man, you know, and I understood everything about him. And so I watched him and I became him, you know. The only thing I remember, but I could imitate his voice very well, and so I took it to rehearsal like this, and the director said, you can't play it like this, you'll sound pissed. So he'd say, I can't buy this Campbell disaster, bad luck, what have you. You know, I said, to hell with them, we're going to beat the Americans. We talk very much like that, very much 50s sort of style of speech. But of course, if you play him like that, you can play him pissed. So I had to sort of modify it a bit. But I did the hair and all that, and I look in the mirror every morning, put on the boiler suit, and I thought, that's it.
The point is to get this bloody record, with or without the press. That's the point. And I'm going to do it, Unc. Even if it's the last thing I do.
There's something about, there's a poignancy about him. I think his need to prove himself against his own father, his long-dead father, who dominated him in his life. That was his need to overcome that, because he was a puny little boy. He suffered rheumatic fever, couldn't even get into the RAF and all that during the war. He was a failure in his own eyes, and Bluebird was an act of total madness.
This morning, the sun was shining. It was like glass out there. Not a breeze, not a ripple. No one to see me fail. So I took her out. Felt relaxed and I felt confident. And suddenly it hit me harder than ever. What? I didn't know, this blasted fear. I started shaking all over. Thought my head was going to split open. I stared ahead like some dead fish. Do you know what? Suddenly I saw the old man, my father, through the windscreen. As plain as I'm seeing you now. He's staring down at me. Suddenly he gave me that broad smile of his and he said, what he said was even plainer. He said, don't worry, old boy. There's nothing to fear.
We can't not talk about Hannibal Lecter for a few minutes. When you got the script, Silence of the Lambs, did you get the book or the script?
Script.
And was that another instant decision and an instant feeling you could play this man?
Yes. Then I read the book. Yes, I heard his voice and I saw how he looked. I saw his, I saw the way he moved, and I understood him. He made me laugh.
Where did his voice come from, do you think, when you thought about it later?
I don't know. There was one line where he says, I'll help you catch him, Clarice. And I saw him at the end of a dark tunnel, this dark, shadowy figure, which is the part of all ourselves, you know. It's like the man at the bogeyman, or at the top of the stairs. And that's out of my childhood.
Good morning.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
I am, yes.
May I see your credentials?
Certainly.
Closer, please. Closer. That expires in 1 week. You're not real FBI, are you?
I knew he would be attractive, because I was attracted to him, as people who were reading the book were attracted to him. I thought, well, my job is sort of easy. I've got to make him somehow attractive. I've got to not embellish it too much, just play the lines. Find a way of playing him, but not do
Why do you think you were attracted to him, and why do you think we are attracted to him? What's going on?
Well, I think we're attracted to Richard III, we're attracted to Iago, because they dare to do the very thing. We're attracted to Lambert LaRue, because they dare say the unspeakable. They do the things we dread doing, or even think. We dare not even think some of the things these people say. But they live so close to the edge that it's exciting. It's exciting. We want to be close to the edge because we live in our funny little lives of safety and security. It's very exciting to go to the edge of the precipice and look down. It's wonderful. It's exhilarating. I think that's why people like Campbell and are exhilarating characters as well, because they live so close to the edge. They dare death. And they have no uncertainty, no doubts at all in their lives. And they're charismatic. I mean, Adolf Hitler and Stalin or Mrs. Thatcher. They all have this kind of... You think, my God, you're in the same room with these people, and they're frightening because they are so certain. They're unblinking. I think, I'm a layman psychiatrist, I think we all would like to be like that. I would love to be certain. I'd love to get out of bed in the morning in a machine-like state of zen, have no doubts, no feelings of anxiety. It would be a wonderful state to be in. Of course, you'd be on the edge of madness. But every so often it's nice to look down into the abyss. And as an ex, you know, a man who's, well, I haven't been into the abyss, but I've been in my own personal hell. I loved it. I mean, I'm glad, and I can go back and visit it every so often, you know, having been through those experiences myself. Not that they've been catastrophic, but I've been through areas of my life that have been dark, and I like to go back every so often. I like the seamy side of life sometimes. I like the dark side of life.
Do you think that success has helped you to be easier?
Yes, it has indeed. And in fact, the oddest thing has happened because this film, Silence of the Lambs, has been an enormous hit. It's the one thing I always wanted was to be in a big hit film. And when I saw it, and I knew that it was a big hit, box office and critically and all that, it was like I'd been let out of the cage. I went to Leicester Square one night with a pal of mine, Terry. We sat in the car. It was a rainy night. He said, I sat there and looked up at the Leicester Square thing, you know, Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins. He said, what do you think? I said, well, I'm slightly disappointed, I said, because I thought it would change things. It hasn't changed anything. And now I can make some bad films and it doesn't matter anymore. I don't have to prove it. It's like all those little doubts that started way back when I was a child. It's like a voice inside me says, see, you weren't that dumb. You're just different.